Crafts, Rachel here. I hope you're all well. So for today's video, I want to talk to you all about using fabric in your journals. You'll have just seen a little clip at the beginning where I just done a pan of the table to kind of give you an idea and indication of the sort of fabrics that I tend to be working with. But I'm really conscious that obviously not everybody's got access to lots of different types of fabrics, and sometimes I think we struggle with different ideas for what we can do with fabric. So I just thought it'd be really helpful if we kind of, went through a few things that you can use, some ideas of where you can find them, and then what we can do with them. So the first thing I want to talk to you about today is the different types of fabric that you can use to work within your journal. So I got an array of different things here in front of me just to give you some quick examples, and I'm going to try and be really quick. So the first thing that I got here is quite a thick piece of kind of canvasy material, which I think was actually has come from it's like a napkin material, when you've got your cloth rolled up on the table kind of thing. We call them napkins here, and you'd have a napkin ring, but at the dinner table. So that is that kind of material. It's quite thick and canvasy, and that's just lovely because it's in a nice dark blue, which obviously I'm working with at the moment. You'll notice most of these things will be blue. This section here is actually from a fabric sample book. Now I know these are not always very easy to come across, but should you come across them, you can use them for anything, and obviously depending on the design or what have you. But don't be held back by that. If you pick up a piece of fabric and you think, this one for example, I look at this and I'm like, oh my goodness, this doesn't excite me at all, and yet it's perfect. It's perfect for snippets, it's perfect for clusters, it's perfect for adding small sections on. You'd be surprised how when you take the smallest part of a piece of fabric, how effective it can look, even when it comes to perhaps slow stitching with labels and things. So, nothing needs to go to waste. This is also great because it's got a zip on there. I know some of you ladies do some great things with zips on your journal pages. Another example of fabric that you can use is linen. This is linen from an old large tablecloth. But it's exactly the same linen that you find on a tea towel. So the towel that you use to dry your dishes, it's the same fabric as that. So it's just that nice linen, canvasy kind of thing. If you were fortunate enough to get it in white, I suppose you'd be able to print on it. But if not, you can use it for all sorts of things as well. So, and I mean, you can pick these up in charity shops, in thrift shops, in your grandmother's cupboard. I didn't pinch that from Mum's, I did buy that in a charity shop. Here we've got some examples of some nice flowery fabrics. I bought some fabrics the other day and I wanted to just show you those as an example. So this is a set of fat quarters. They are modern fabrics, they're not vintage or old in any way. They literally have come from the shop. But I just thought they were lovely, and I know Mum had some of these recently as well, and she made some really beautiful things with them. And I was like, oh my gosh, where did you get those fabrics from? And she was like, it's the fat quarters about. I was like, oh my goodness, so who'd have thought? So sometimes even when a fabric can look a little bit modern, you can still work with it to make it look older if you want to. Not everybody wants their fabrics to look vintage, I must add that. We're not all working on vintage journals all the time. Sometimes we just want colour. So you need to seek out the place. The supermarket I got that from, so check those out if you want to look for things like fat quarters or things like that. If you specifically want vintage fabrics, this is a section here from some vintage fabric. You'll notice there's not much in my collection that I've got here that's vintage. It tends to be a bit of both, and by mixing a bit of both you get to have a little bit of the old in with a bit of the new. And I just think the colours, they still blend really nicely, don't they? So I mean, if you're looking at making something that's really bright and colourful, they're ideal there. The other place that you can look at for fabrics like this, because I've actually got a pillowcase upstairs that has got exactly the same kind of pattern on as this bit of fabric, and I will be using that in journals because it's just lovely, and it's patchwork, the pattern and the design on there. So if you do have old sheets, things like that, obviously make sure that they're thoroughly cleaned, but the fabric can be used again and again and again. Look at children's clothes. When your children have grown out their clothes, especially if you've got girls. I don't, so I didn't have that option, but things like jeans, dungarees, things like that, you can take the pockets off them, use the pockets. There's so many different ideas of different things that you can do with fabrics that are just found in your home. Of course, then we've got things like old handkerchiefs or ladies' handkerchiefs. They're going to be old. This one is from a charity shop again. You'll be amazed where you'll find these. If you go to car boot sales, or if you go to your thrift stores, or Marketplace. Marketplace on Facebook is an excellent place to look for, you know, natty little things like that. And these, I will show you what we're going to do with these later on. Then you also can get old tablecloths. We can get lovely sections of lace from them. I know they're not always easily obtainable, but, you know, just look. If not, you know, people sell them on Etsy, things like that, if you particularly wanted stuff like that. But you don't have to buy stuff like this to make lovely things with fabric. So this is kind of my point. This year was a doily that was on, like a tray cloth that was on the table. And again, I've been just taking sections out of it and using you know, the pretty appliques out of there to decorate in the journals. So that's just an example of some different types of fabrics that we can use. So basically nothing's off the table. You know, what else have I got here? We've got an old doily here. You know, these are beautiful, these lovely embroidered doilies, but you can use them for so many different things, different types of fabric that we got then again. So kind of your sari kind of fabrics and your trims. So if you're making a bohemian style journal, you know, they're ideal for that, but they're not just limited to that, you know, so the silks and everything. You know, they're just as lovely added into perhaps your vintage themed journal, or just something where you want to splash a colour. Then, of course, you've got different kinds of trims and things like that. So here's a section of some lace trim. This is not vintage. This is a modern stitched trim, but it's just as beautiful and would make a lovely pocket. So that's another example there. Then we've got another piece of bohemian trim. That, again, has many, many uses to it as well. Pockets, tucks, all sorts of things. Leftovers for clusters. Then you've got your wider trim laces. And then you've got things then like your embroidery anglaise, appliques. And then you've got the different types of, and I know these are more for the embellishment side, but they're still fabric. So you've got these kind of things. Now, I recently had these sent to me very kindly by somebody from my wish list. Oh, I do apologise, I just whacked the camera. They were on my wish list, and I know they've come from Amazon, and they go for about £1.99 on there for a length. So I haven't quite measured it out yet, but I think it's about, it must be about a metre, I think. There's a lot on there, and I mean, they're beautiful. So that, you know, there's all different types of things. Don't feel limited because you think things are not accessible. You'd be surprised at things you can get from places like Amazon. And, you know, I know they tend to source a lot more things. Now, they do take a little while to come sometimes, but it can be worth it, you know, if you just hang in there and put that project off. Crochet doilies, you know, this is something that perhaps we all need to start learning how to make. I'd love to know how to make these. But again, they are fantastic to use in journals. And yeah, I've just got some more tray cloths here then. Oh, and quilts, that's the last thing I wanted to show you. Sections of quilt. And again, they don't have to be old. They just need to not longer be wanted on anybody's bed. So don't go cutting up somebody's favourite quilt just because you need a section of it in your journal, obviously. But again, you can source these things out. You know, there are places that you can get these things from. And if you don't want to buy a whole massive quilt, you can get sections of them, you know, online. Well, actually, we do them in our Etsy store, but that's not a plug. So that's the fabric. So that's the first thing that I want to show you there. Okay, so what can we do with our fabric, I hear you say? Well, the first thing that I want to show you are some very, very simple and basic fabric flips. So the idea of the fabric flip is that you place it into your journal on a page, and then it becomes a bit of a hidden spot. So for example, I'm just going to use this journal page here a moment. Colours not particularly go together well, but that's fine. So you would affix then your flip to the top of the page, and then you'll have a space underneath then for or whatever. You could put layers and layers and layers of things under there. So, you know, you could have a little bit of hidden journaling under there. You could put something under here, and then something under here. You know, you just gotta, the only limitation is your imagination at the end of the day. So this one here that I've done, I've added a little section there. I could stitch the bottom of that or glue the bottom of that and just use that then as a little tuck spot in the front of the flip. And then obviously again, then you'll still have your flip underneath. Please don't feel limited with using fabric if you don't have a sewing machine or can't sew, because it doesn't matter. You can do all of these things with Fabri-Tac, you know, with a good, any good fabric glue, and you can still have the same effect. So, you know, I make my fabric flips. I do finish them on the sewing machine. because I have access to one and I like the finish. But when I put them on the page, very often I will glue them on, because I don't often want the stitching on the back of the page then, you know, if I've got something else on there. So they are brilliant, and they are just so easy to make. So with these, literally all I've done is I've taken, these are quite large ones actually, you know, you can make them a lot smaller than that. So you would literally just take a small section of fabric, and then I try to perhaps layer it with a different kind of fabric. So here I've just used some old tablecloth, and then I've just covered the top then again with a bit of old kind of lace and applique. That's got a bit of lace on the top of there. But I mean, there's all sorts of things that you could do with them, you know. For example, I've got a section here. This would make quite a nice long flip. And then I've got this lovely little bit of embroidery here. So, you know, we could add that on at the top and have a bit of a double flip going on. We could put a bit of lace across the top here. So, I mean, you just need to sit and play. You just need to get all your fabrics out, and you just need to sit and play. Now, I will probably cut that short because that is a little bit long for what I'm doing. So let's just take that up. But I mean, if that was on your page, how cute would that look? And it's just a little bit of colour. And the thing with the fabric flips is they are perfect for covering up a page. If you've got a page in June you're not particularly happy with or don't particularly like, or it just doesn't fit and your theme's gone on. Because as we know, we all start out with a plan when you're making a journal, but they tend to, what's the word I'm looking for? It changes over time, it evolves. So, you know, you've got to sometimes evolve with it as well, haven't you? And just change your ideas. So, you know, another great thing that you can do with these as well is you can add, oh, of course you can add this type of lace as well. So if you want to make it further, layer there like that. Or what I do sometimes like to do is add some to the bottom. So at least then you've got a little bit further down. It covers a bit more of the page, sorry, and it does as well add a little bit of weight at the bottom. So, I mean, I could quite easily sit and hand stitch this now. I'm not going to do that now because I don't want to take up your time. But just to give you an example, you know, either that or you can just glue these things in place. But I would definitely leave that open there so that you can pop perhaps a picture in there. You could always stick a photograph under there. You know, there's just so many ideas and options available to you. So that's your fabric flips. Okay, so another example of things that you can do with fabric, of course, is to cover your journals with them. So this is the one I'm working on currently at the moment. So just to give you an example of what I've done here, I actually used some fabric samples to cover this journal cover. I took a hardcover book, I covered the front and the back with just an array of different scraps and colours. I don't know if you can see this, so there's one pattern underneath at the top there, the different section in the bottom, and then there's a piece then that wraps around from behind there over the spine and then to the front, and then that tucked around the front. And then on the inside then I have put cardboard, because I glued the edges onto the hardcover, and then I glued then a cardstock interior cover over the top, which I then stitched before I stuck down, just because I liked the finish of it. Then on the inside of the spine I've added linen, and that was just to kind of you know, bring it all together, because obviously I'm using different things. And then even when I'm making my spine, I've used a different fabric there again, because I've covered the hidden spine card with fabric. After having done everything else then, I've added lace. So I've got, this again is from a very old cloth, tablecloth. I've got more modern laces then, probably, they're on the top and on the spine. And then I've got some older lace again then on the back, which I've left open as a pocket, because that is one of the really useful things with adding lace in, of course, is that you can then add yourself a little pocket or a tuck spot then to just to finish things off. So it just gives you more options. I mean, there's nothing to stop you adding layer upon layer upon layer, especially when it comes to lace, because it's see-through. So, you know, you can make it as simple or as complicated as you want to. What I also did with this one as well is I've added some of the fabric sample stuff that I had, and that there is from that this linen that I was showing you just now, the cloth in, and I've just done a tiny little bit of slow stitch on there, and then just a little bit of machine stitch, just to make it, you know, add a little bit of interest to it, really. And then I've used paper and embossed paper then to make the front embellishments. And then to finish it off, I added a little fabric cluster. And of course the buttons, don't forget your buttons. If you can get your hands on some buttons, husband's shirts, perhaps if you're throwing them out, don't forget when you're getting rid of old clothes, take the buttons off them, take the, you know, the cuffs off them, take the buttonholes off them. You'll be absolutely amazed at the things that you can do with little bits of leftover fabric. You know, cut the collar off, everything. You know, don't throw anything out, just salvage from it what you can. So that's another example then of how I would use fabric, and that's by making the cover on my journal. So third example of how we can use fabric in our journals is to make pockets. So this pocket here, I have simply used the corner of a tablecloth. It was just, I think it was actually off a table runner, an old table runner that Mum and I picked up in a charity shop. I think we paid about £1 for it, and it was obviously just really, really interesting. It's got this really old lace on it and this just lovely fabric. So I, the section of cloth that I had, it was like a square, but it had this great bits of linen. Who's that again? It was a square, but it had the great bits of lace running at a diagonal. So I thought, well, rather than just hack it all apart, I'm going to work with the shape of the fabric. So I cut it on the diagonal, and I've kept then the integrity of it and been able to make a nice deep pocket. So that now looks fab. It's going to be on the front page when you open it up, and you're going to have this lovely old feel lace, because it is old, and then you've got a nice deep pocket then to pop anything that you want down inside of there. And of course, waste not, want not. What I then did was on the other side, because of course there was more to the fabric, I actually left the other section on. Because it was lace, I was able to stretch it across to fit the whole page, and I'd just taken out, there was more linen in there, so I took that off so I can see this lovely page. And then there's a tiny, and this tag is obviously too big for it, there's a tiny little tuck in there as well then. So out of one section of a cloth, I've managed to make a pocket and a mini pocket, and provide myself then with edging for my journal page. Now I've stitched the edging onto my journal page just because I want that look on there. It's not necessary, you don't have to sew. You could have done that with fabric tack and it would have looked just as awesome. So, you know, don't be limited by that. Another style of fabric pocket, of course, is if you have a square, and then you can just make a little tuck spot like that. So anything that is that shape would do. And all I've simply done is I've taken a piece of fabric and I have stuck it onto some coffee dye paper. Any paper will do. It is just because it makes it easier then for you to slide whatever in and out. And then I stitched just all around the edging just to make sure, I mean, it went a bit wonky there, it doesn't matter. It all adds to the character of my journal, I feel. And it will just be ideal because it'll keep it flat and it'll just provide you with a bit of stability. Whereas obviously if you put fabric in there by itself, it's going to flop about. So I would definitely recommend you would back that with card or paper. Nothing too thick because we don't want to make the journal bulky, but definitely you want to be backing up the pockets. The other pocket that I've made using fabric, which of course if you've been following along while I've been making this, was the double pocket. So of course you'll see in that video I used fabric and lace and stretched that around to make a double pocket. But you know, this has got lots of elements to it, this pocket, and it is simply just made by 2 bits of fabric and 2 book pages, where I've just covered them around, and of course I've got then a tuck behind there as well. And then I've just added a little snippet cluster with some of my fabric scraps, and then this side, my snippet cluster, I've even left a gap to make another pocket for these tiny little tags and tickets to go in. So again, all fabric. And then of course got the pocket in the front, and then we've got a pocket on the back, and then there'll be a tuck spot behind there as well. So that's just an example there of some types of pockets that you can make. Obviously there are lots of different pockets that you can make with fabric, and I will show you some more as we go on looking at this over the series. Okay, so we've also looked at different types of doilies and things at the beginning of the programme, and Okay, so we also looked at different types of doilies and cloths at the beginning of the video, and one of the things that I mentioned to you was this kind of embroidered doily. So what can you do with that? You say, well, what I've actually done here is I've added the doily here to make, simply added it in as a page in the journal. So where's the other half? Bear with me a second. So here is the other half of the doily. Now this one was not particularly overly embellished. You've got that beautiful embroidery there, which I wanted to make sure was on this side, but on this side there isn't anything on this, so that leaves me free now to add. I can add further. I may hand stitch some stuff on there. I may just do a slow stitch pattern on there. I can add some buttons on there. I can add a cluster on there. I can put a snippet on there. I can do all sorts of things with it. I can even put a bit of lace on there and make a little tuck pocket in there as well. So you know, don't feel limited by obviously what the fabric, the shape of the fabric. You can add to them as well and continue to add to them. And yeah, just adding in fabric as a page, that is always an option. Okay, so another way that we can use fabric is to decorate our tags. We did a video a couple of weeks back. It was part of Roxy's weekly challenge, and she made the most beautiful tags, which she demonstrated to us how we could do it using leftover scraps of material. So as you can see with this one that I made here, I have only added here the tiny little bits of fabric, but I just think that looks so good on that tag, and I just think it's really effective. You know, you can make a whole collage from fabric alone. Obviously these two tags that I've got here, you know, I wanted to mix the media, so I got a little bit of embossed paper there. I had to add a botanical image, so I've got that on there, and I put some labels on there, and then of course I've got my bits of fabric. But I absolutely love these two tags. They are my favourites at the moment. And that one there, I took that piece from a handkerchief with a little bit of embroidery on there, and I just think that makes them look really lovely. And of course another way that we can use fabric on our tags is as for the tabs at the top. So you can either sew on a wide piece of lace or a piece of fabric as a tab on the top, or you can thread it through a grommet and have it as a proper topper, and that just adds a little bit more interest to your journal. So fabric on tags. Okay, so just to recap then, different ways in which we've looked at today that we can use fabric in our journal projects. So we've got the fabric flips, which you can use any and all kinds of different fabrics to decorate, adorn, make them big, make them small, cover a page, cover a small area, provide a hidden writing space. Then we've of course got our journal covers, which can be done in huge different amount of wonderful ways. Again, it's all down to your creativity and imagination. And of course we have Pinterest, so we don't have creativity and imagination, we can go and look on there for ideas, which is fantastic. We've got clusters that we can make from little scraps of our fabric. We've then got book page pockets that we can use. So there's all different styles of pockets that you can make, different shapes, different sizes. Another type of pocket there as well, of course, and you can use them to wrap around the page. It doesn't have to be limited to just on one page. So obviously that just slides in there onto the page. And another thing that we can use them for is to decorate our tags. So you can use them as the toppers, and you can use them as designs and images on the front of your tags. So I'm going to leave it there with you today, guys. I hope you found the video helpful. I will be back with another video with more ideas on different things that you can do with fabric, and I hope that you will go and use some of these ideas. And if you do make stuff, please put them in the group, tag me on Facebook, tag me on Instagram. I love seeing the things that you make, and I can share it then on my story so that loads of other people can see it too. So have a fantastic day, guys, and I'll be back with you very soon. Bye.